Hello students, today we'll start our third poem, Keeping Quiet, written by Pablo Neruda. First of all, we'll read about the poet. The real name of Pablo Neruda was Neftali Ricardo Reyes Basalto. He was born in 1904 in Chile and died in 1973. In 1920, he adopted the pen name Pablo Neruda in the memory of poet Jan Neruda. He was a Chilean poet who was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1971. Not only that, he also received numerous prestigious awards including the International Peace Prize in 1950, the Lenin Prize, Peace Prize, and the Stalin Peace Prize in 1953. He wrote in green ink, which was his personal symbol for desire and hope. His poems are full of easily understood images which make them no less beautiful. He was also a diplomat and politician. In this poem, the poet Pablo Neruda discusses the need of maintaining peace and silence, or we can say that this poem is a call for introspection for all human beings who have divided themselves on the basis of race, language, and nationalities. This poem is presented in the form of an exercise for maintaining silence and stillness. In these moments of silence, one can break the shackles of hatred, discrimination, violence, and create an exotic moment of togetherness. In such inactivity and silence, we can feel the strength of humanity. So, in this poem, the poet Pablo Neruda talks about the necessity of quiet introspection and creating a feeling of mutual understanding among human beings. The poet has emphasized the importance of introspection. Now, students, you heard a new word, introspection. So, the question is, what do you mean by introspection? Introspection is the examination or observation of one's own mental and emotional processes. Or we can also say to look within and examine ourselves. To look within ourselves and examine our deeds, our actions. So, as you know, children, man has become very selfish today. And his own actions cause him many miseries. The world together stands divided by the man-made boundaries of caste, religion, race, language, culture, and so on. Now the necessity of time is to rise above all these discrimination. The poet talks about the necessity of creating a feeling of mutual understanding among human beings. Silence creates an exotic moment. Exotic. Exotic means unusual, strange, remarkable, exciting. So silence, the time of introspection, creates an exotic moment where one forgets one's differences. Wars come to a standstill and a feeling of brotherhood prevails. The poet wants to say that much of the evil shall disappear in the depth of an understanding, silent and inactive life. If man at one point of time does nothing, life on earth can become a heaven for those moments in life. So, in this poem, the poet stresses upon being quiet and harmless to the human beings, animals, and undoubtedly to the environment. He suggests that in order to maintain peace and harmony, it is required to stop and introspect ourselves. So, children, I think you understood the theme of the poem very well. You understood what is the poem all about. And if you see the poem, if you read the poem, you can see that the poem is written in free verse. The poem is written in free verse. It means there is no rhyming scheme in this poem. So now open your book, page number 95. We'll start reading the poem. Now the opening lines of the poem are, now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. These are the opening lines of the poem. Students, as you know, in literature, the writer or poet uses literary devices. So, I have written or I have given literary devices after each and every stanza of the poem. So, listen the paraphrasing of the poem very carefully. Write the words of the meaning. Write meanings of the words wherever necessary. And also see the literary devices which are given here. So, let us start our poem with these two lines. Now we will count to 12 and we shall be keep still. We here human beings will come to 12. It means the poet says that, or the poet suggests that we will count up to 12 and then we will keep still and calm. It means that it does not take much time to look within and examine ourselves. If taken only few seconds, and in that moment of stillness, peace can prevail in the world. Means, when we count up to 12, that much time is sufficient to keep calm and quiet. Means, only a few seconds are needed to introspect ourselves, to examine our actions. So now the question is, why has the poet used the phrase count to 12? What is the significance of number 12 here? What does the phrase count to 12 imply? Can you tell me? Okay, now see beta, as you know, there are 12 hours represented on a clock, or as there are 12 months in a year. And in both the cases, the number 12 indicates the time of human activity. The time of human activity that the poet wishes to put on rest. It means the poet wants all the human beings of the earth, on the earth, to keep still for few seconds. So the poet wants the people to keep still for a few moments and introspect themselves. In this moment of introspection, we should examine ourselves, our deeds, and also think what harm we are causing to ourselves, to our fellow human beings, and undoubtedly to our nature. So the poet wants us to introspect ourselves so that we can realize what harm we are causing to our fellow human beings and nature. Once we introspect ourselves, we realize that we do a lot of harm to each other. So introspection is very important. This is the need of the time to introspect ourselves, to examine ourselves, to examine our deeds. I think you get what these two lines wants to say. So the poet says that it does not take much time to introspect. We just count up to 12 and that moment would be the moment of introspection. For once on the face of the earth, let us not speak in any language. Let us stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. For once on the face of the earth. On the face of means on this earth. So for once, the poet says that only for once on this earth, let us not speak in any language. It means the poet wants a moment of silence on the earth when no language is spoken. It means the poet does not want any of us to speak any language. He wants us to be silent. And if no language is spoken, there will be no language barrier between people. And we take in this way also, beta, you know it very well that language breeds discrimination and linguistic differences breeds discrimination. If for some time no one speaks, all these discriminations will wither away in the depth of silence. It means if everybody sits silent when no one speaks any language, so in that time of introspection, all human beings remain same. They seems same. There will be no discrimination. There will be no biasness among human beings. Let us stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. Now the poet says that in this moment of silence, it means when we do not use any language. So in this moment of silence, the poet does not want anyone to move their arms. To move their arms means he wants us to remain motionless. He wants us to be inactive for few seconds so that we can introspect ourselves. Beta, here we can see the figure of speech is used here. The very first figure of speech is used assonance. Assonance means the repetition of the vowel sound. You can see the use of vowel sound O and E. Now we will count count to. O is repeated. 12. Move. E sound is repeated. So assonance is used here. After that, let us. These two phrases are repeated in the beginning of two different lines. So that is known as anaphora. Anaphora means the repetition of a phrase at the beginning of the phrases or sentences, and this repetition is used for emphasis. So here, let us not speak in any language. Let us stop for 1 second. So let us. This phrase is repeated. So which figure of speech is used here? Anaphora. After that, one more figure of speech is used here. Arms. Arms. Can you tell me the figure of speech used here? Just think. If arms is given, so can you identify the figure of speech used here? Yes, some of you are right. Arms. That is pun. Pun is used here. Pun means playing with words or a word having two or more than two meanings. Here, arms. See beta, arms means hands. So here the poet wants us not to move our arms. It means not to do any work. And here arms also means weapons. Means the poet wants us not to use any weapon against other human beings and nature. So which figure of speech is used here? Pun. And after that, in first two lines, one more figure of speech is used here. We will. WW is repeated, that is alliteration. So I think you understood the first stanza very well. Now we will start second stanza. You can see the figure of speech written here. Assonance, anaphora, alliteration, pun. Now, second stanza. It would be an exotic moment. It would be an exotic moment. It means the moment of introspection. It here refers to the moment of introspection, the moment when we keep still, the moment when we become inactive. So it here refers to the moment of introspection, the moment when we keep still, when no language is spoken, no work is done on this earth. So such a moment is an exotic moment. Means the poet says that it would be an exotic moment. It means the moment of silence, the moment of introspection would be an exotic moment. Exotic means unusual, strange, remarkable, exciting. So the poet says that the moment of introspection would be an unusual moment. It would be an exciting one. So what do you mean by exotic? Exotic means unusual or exciting or remarkable. Without rush, without engine, without rush. Rush means hurry and worry of life. It means we are so busy in our life. Our life is full of hurry. So without rush here means without hurry and worry of life. Without engines. Without engine means there will be no sound of machines to pollute the atmosphere. There would be no movement of machines. So when there would be no hurry and worry in the life, when there would be no sound of machines and other things, we would all be together. So the poet says that means these, first of all we'll discuss these two expressions, without rush, without engines. These expressions are symbolic of hubbub of the modern life. In the modern competitive world of advancement, there is a rat race to outshine others. The poet wants to say that life can be peaceful only if this thoughtless advancement or rat race can be stopped. It means if rat race is stopped, then that movement would be the peaceful one. So, in this moment of silence, one can experience the strength of togetherness. Means, without rush, without engines, we would all be together. It means, in this moment of silence, in this moment of introspection, one can experience the strength of togetherness, a sudden strange relationship to which humanity binds itself. So that is the reason poet says that we would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Means in the moment of silence one can experience the strength of togetherness, a sudden strange relationship to which humanity binds itself. In this unusual period, the bonds of humanity will get stronger. We experience the feeling of universal brotherhood and a feeling of togetherness. So, the poet wants to say that what, first of all the question is, what would be an exotic moment? It is very important here. It here refers to the time of introspection, the moment of introspection. It means when there is no language, when there is no activity. It means when we keep still for few seconds and introspect ourselves. That would be an exotic moment. And in that exotic moment, we are far away from the hurry and worry of life. There would be no sound of engines or machines. And when there is complete silence around us, we would experience the sudden strangeness of togetherness. We experience the feeling of universal brotherhood. Means when there is no activity around us, when there is no language around us, we seems to be one. So that is the reason poet says that we would be all together in that exotic moment when we introspect ourselves. So beta, we did two stanzas here and I think you understood both very well. If we are talking about figure of speech used in second stanza, alliteration is used. We would, WW is repeated. One more figure of speech you can say used here, without repetition is there.